Now, here's Chief Meteorologist Jerry Jackson with the latest on Hurricane Irene.
Well, already Hurricane Irene moving into southeastern North Carolina, at least the outer edge fringe effects. We've already seen several rain bands come on shore. And let's go ahead and pop up the latest radar image, and something that's worth mentioning right off the bat. If you're new to the area, you've never experienced a hurricane firsthand, whenever you see these things on satellite, you say, oh goodness, it's a solid wall of hurricane force conditions. It's not. Your weather comes in waves. See the different bands we have rotating through? Most of it green, fairly light to moderate rain. But every now and then when you have one of those yellow or orange bands move on shore, your winds can kick up rather impressively, as we've seen just in the past hour or so across parts of New Hanover County. The latest set of numbers on the storm still has essentially the winds at 100 miles an hour as Irene continues to move up to the north. Not much has changed as far as the official forecast projection. You see the center of circulation is still expected to bypass us to the east, but look at the wind field, this dark shading. That indicates a zone of hurricane force, at least gusts and possibly sustained too. And that area of hurricane force winds does clip at least coastal counties in southeastern North Carolina. And then of course from there rapidly the storm begins to exit.
Beachgoers could still be found at Topsail Beach yesterday, but today is a different story.
There was a voluntary evacuation at the beach. Now we have a live shot coming up. Before we go to that, I want to tell you, because of the wind and the rain up there, the conditions, we do have our crew out there, but the picture is getting battered around a little bit. So if it breaks up somewhat, that's what's going on. The wind and rain are breaking up. Right now though, let's try and go live to our Katie Harden live at Topsail Beach. Katie, how are you?
Hey Chris, well, I'm a little wet. It's just like Jerry's been saying all day. It's been coming in spurts. Right now it's raining pretty hard. The wind is picking up, but just a few moments ago there was no rain whatsoever. If you take a look behind me, you can see the intercoastal waterway is already almost all the way. It's almost reaching my feet already. And when we were just down at the beach a few minutes ago, the water was all the way up to the dunes already, and that was about 20 minutes ago, so it could be up even further now. As you said, there was a voluntary evacuation of Topsail Island. But there is a mandatory curfew starting tonight at 8 p.m. that goes till tomorrow at noon. That is to ensure that everyone stays safe inside. Like I said, the water is rising very quickly, and it keeps picking up, and I don't even think it's high tide yet. So it's only going to get worse out here. But so far, like Jerry's been saying all day, it just keeps coming in spurts. And right now, it's sort of dying down a little bit, but I'm sure it'll pick right back up.
That's our Katie Harden live at Topsail Beach. She'll join us later in the show.
WWAY's Asha DeVay is live right now on Wrightsville Beach with a look at what's happening on the shores of New Hanover County. Asha, how are things? Do you feel safe out there?
Chris, to be honest, things are absolutely wicked out here. I'm having a hard time standing. The winds and the waves, they're growing by the second, and I'm not sure if you can see the waves behind me, but really there's no beach left. The waves are almost cresting onto the dunes, and the waves, I have to be honest, they're just terrifying, really. No one is out here, thank goodness. No one's chancing it. People came out earlier to take a look at things, but once they took one look at those waves, they headed back inside, and I would suggest everyone doing that. It is really scary out here.
Asha, do you think that beachfront property is threatened right now? Do you think the waves are starting to get that high?
As of right now, I think they're okay. If things begin to pick up a little bit more, things could get a little hairy out here. As I was saying, the dunes are holding back the waves right now, but they're starting to crest up onto the dunes.
All right, you be safe. Our Asha DeVay live at Wrightsville Beach.
Coming up on News Channel 3.
Now, here's Chief Meteorologist Jerry Jackson with the latest on Hurricane Irene.
It has been a stormy day of weather all throughout southeastern North Carolina, and even before the sunset, we were already seeing some impressive coastal images courtesy of our viewers, and we'll likely see more of these as we head throughout the course of the evening before Irene finally begins to pull away. Here's the latest radar imagery of Irene, and if you look down here, you can just make out the outer edge of what is the eye beginning to come into view. Probably going to make its closest approach to southeastern North Carolina sometime around 2-3 a.m. or so in the morning, but here's the good news. If you look at this, the official forecast projection that has kept the eye to the east of southeastern North Carolina does indeed look like it's going to hold true. So for this thing to turn and make landfall, it would really have to take a hard turn to the west, and that appears very, very unlikely.
Well, the storm is getting stronger as it approaches our area.
WWAY's Katie Harden is live in Topsail with the latest conditions in Pender County. Now, Katie, we talked to you through the evening. You've been on TV, but can you compare since 6 o'clock up to now? How much worse are things getting there where you are?
You guys are sort of breaking up. Can you ask me that question again, Chris?
Yes. How much worse have conditions gotten in Pender County since 6 o'clock? I know you've been on since then, but how much worse is it since 6?
it's just ever since about 6 o'clock, it's just been consistent, and it really shows no sign of calming down anytime soon. The rain has just been coming in sheets. There was a point earlier that it sounded like there was an air conditioner in the pool, but it was actually raining so hard. I really can't explain it. If you look behind me, you can just see it just pelting the street, and the wind is blowing so hard that this stop sign I'm standing next to is almost out of the ground. So I'm keeping a close eye on that, making sure it doesn't head my way. Since 6 o'clock, it's just continually getting worse. We actually made our way back over to the beach where we talked to you earlier just to see what it was like down there. And although the waves aren't coming up as close, they're still very, very dangerous. There still is no beach. And we looked over on the pier. There was people that were trying to make their way down to the end of the pier. Let me just tell you, there is a curfew for a reason. The people that were trying to get down to the end of the pier couldn't even make it. It was blowing so hard, and then a huge wave came over and almost knocked them down. So they quickly ran off. But other than that, we haven't really seen too many people out here either. It's just been really rainy and very, very windy.
Now, Katie, what else are you seeing out there as far as debris goes, damages, anything else around you out there?
As far as debris, we haven't seen too much of that yet. We keep hearing things, but not being able to identify where it's coming from. We are very lucky because we still do have power over here, and from what I've been hearing, that is not the case in a lot of other areas, but we still have power, and from what we can see, it just seems like there's some minimal flooding, but not too much damage to any of the structures around us, except there are a few signs that are tilting and a few little minor trees down, but nothing too serious so far.
Okay, Katie, thanks a lot. Now, the tide is going to be going out, but the winds will come up, so you watch out for flying debris and take care of yourself. Good reports. All right, our Katie Harden live in Topsail, watching out there. With Irene knocking on the doorstep, the Salvation Army is pitching in.
And this was a view earlier today. I think we have some footage from over toward Carolina Beach. This is courtesy of a viewer by the name of Dane Waggett that was sent in earlier. And you can already see, obviously, this was taken before the sun went down, and we were already seeing rough surf conditions. This is a particular area that you'll see coming up, referred to as Dolphin Bay here in a little bit. And just look at how the water is already coming. A sign that kind of puts into perspective, even though the center of circulation has been far to our south, this is a wide-reaching storm.
And that's what we talk about when we talk about that storm surge too, and sometimes that can get kind of lost in translation. That actually means the ocean is kind of getting pushed up onto the beach. So the beach becomes the ocean once you have those winds coming right on shore, and that flooding seems like happening the worst in Carolina Beach, at least the reports that we're getting into our area. It seems like Carolina Beach being hit specifically hard from all of our viewers.
And you brought up a good point earlier this evening. We were talking to some of the emergency management folks over in Brunswick County. They were saying they had some estimates perhaps up around 4 to 5 inches. That can be a hard thing to gauge because a lot of this is going to be wind-driven rain, at least so far. But we've had several viewer reports with at least 2.5 inches. So in spots, flooding will be a problem.
Sure. We've seen some isolated flooding right now. It would be so much worse if we were even in normal weather conditions this year, but so far that drought might be a blessing in disguise as of right now, since we're going into it about 14 inches dry.
It is a rough night for a lot of people as the storm gets stronger and electricity continues to go out.
And people need a safe, dry place to ride out the storm. We found one busy shelter in Pender County. Our Marissa Jasic has the story.
All 3 of the Pender County shelters have about 260 residents in them, and I'm at the Burgaw Middle School shelter where they are at full capacity. They have about 94 residents here, and I'm here with Jennifer Pariba. Jennifer, just tell me real quick about why you evacuated and where you came from.
I came from Rocky Point, North Carolina. We were just afraid that we wouldn't have any electricity, and we wanted to go to a place where they accept pets, so we chose here. It's been a good experience so far. Good dinner and friendly.
And yes, this is the only pet-friendly shelter in Pender County, but this one is at full capacity. And shelter volunteers have advised for all residents coming to shelters to please bring their own bedding, their own pillows, and blankets. And everyone coming to this shelter has been redirected to go to the Malpas Elementary School, which is off of Highway 421. In Burgaw, Marissa Jasic, WWAY News Channel 3.
We just learned a short time ago that Burgaw Middle School did open additional space at their shelter. All 3 shelters in Pender County are accepting residents.
The effects of Irene can now be seen throughout the viewing area, including downtown Wilmington.
Winds have picked up and trees are snapping off. WWAY's Cliff Pyron has more on the conditions downtown.
I'm Cliff Pyron here in downtown Wilmington, where we're seeing our fair share of damage from Hurricane Irene as well. Street signs moving, a lot of wind and a lot of rain, but some of the main damage has been 2 trees that have fallen down on Market Street, as you can see behind me, like this one right here. Police responded to the scene and blocked off Market Street lanes that head downtown until the fire department arrived at about 9:45 Friday night. Once the fire truck got there, the team proceeded to saw the tree and clear the road. Other sections of downtown had flickering power outages along with heavy winds and rainfall. As of about 10 o'clock, there were not many people out testing Mother Nature. In downtown Wilmington, Cliff Pyron, WWAY News Channel 3.
Despite the conditions in downtown Wilmington, there are, or at least were, a few businesses open on Front Street.
And on the phone right now, we have Warren Lee, the Director of New Hanover Emergency Management. Warren, we want to ask you, do you have any reports of damages or injuries at this point?
The predominant damages we're seeing right now are vegetative debris and some power lines down associated with that. We don't have any reports of injuries right now.
And that is good news, of course. Now, is our county really ready to deal with a storm of this caliber and the aftermath that will come?
I think so. I think the residents are heeding the warnings and are, for the most part, staying put. We still see a little traffic on the roads, but for the most part, I think people are taking our advice and staying put.
For those that are new to hurricanes, you know, those that have transplanted here from other cities, what can they do right now?
Well, the main thing they can do is take our advice and stay where they are. They don't need to be out moving around. Conditions are certainly not favorable for folks to be out who don't have to be.
Well, John, it certainly is a wet and rainy evening across the area. We're going to find that continuing over the next couple of hours. We're looking live at the radar picture right now, and you can see very covered right now. This rain shield has been expanding over the area ever since the early afternoon hours yesterday on Friday. So we are going to see that these continue to really just migrate inland across the area. It's even getting past I-95 right now off to the west of Fayetteville and Lumberton. So a lot of this rain extending pretty far inland right now, but the main center of circulation is still offshore. Zooming in a little bit, you can see a couple of heavy rain bands moving in from Wilmington down toward about Sunny Point or so and off toward Caswell Beach and Oak Island right now. That's where some of the heaviest showers we can find at this time, but the eye itself still offshore. You can see about 100 miles just off the coast of Wilmington, and thankfully it's headed off to the north and east, not coming into our area. And this is going to be about the strongest that we see this storm over the next couple of hours or so, and after that things are going to improve very rapidly by tomorrow morning. That's what we're thinking. Here are the wind speeds, and they've been just all over the place, changing minute by minute across the area. And you'll find that a lot of times in a hurricane it'll actually come in waves, one round very intense and then kind of a lull and then back up to the intensity again. And right now you can see that on our gusts, as little as maybe in the low 30s for gusts, but high 40s in Bergall right now. And we have seen gusts that have been over the 50-mile-per-hour range and even 60-mile-per-hour range at times. The winds, according to the Hurricane Center, right now about 100 miles per hour. That puts the system as a Category 2, and it is headed off and north across the coast of the east coast of the United States up toward New Jersey and even New York City over the next couple of days, and once it gets out of our hair by tomorrow. Here's what our tropical futurecast is thinking with this system. Again, that rain shield depicted pretty well over the state of North Carolina at this hour. Then the eye actually makes its way right up the coast toward Carteret County and the Outer Banks, and you can see the rains ending here pretty quickly once we head into tomorrow morning. So we do think that it actually improves rather quickly once we head into Saturday, and that's exactly what our forecast is calling for. Again, as far as the winds are concerned, it's still possible to get hurricane force winds right along those immediate beaches, but looking pretty unlikely at this point, mainly focusing on those tropical storm conditions across the area with high gusts as high as 40 to 60 miles per hour or so. Once we head into tomorrow morning, say after sunrise, still possible to get those tropical storm force winds, but again, things are going to be gradually improving once the sun rises tomorrow, and by the afternoon, just left with some mostly cloudy skies, gradually increasing the coverage of that sunshine, and by Sunday it is a sunny and hot day across the area. We have maybe possibility to see as much as 10 inches of rain from the system too. We've already had reports much earlier in the evening of as much as 5 to 6 inches, so that is not out of the question to get maybe up to a foot of rain in the localized areas with this system. We are watching high tide that checks in at 6:25 tomorrow a.m., so storm surge up to 5 to 7 feet combining it with the high tide could cause some pretty heavy duty beach erosion along all.
Thanks, Tim. We've been watching this for a while now. We've been enduring Hurricane Irene, and things were going pretty well for a while, but a short time ago, earlier this evening, 3 men went to a wildlife ramp. This is in Castle Hayne on the Northeast Cape Fear River. One of them fell into the river. He's not yet come back, so we don't know his fate. They were searching for him. We have a crew there live right now. We're going to go to WWAY's Cliff Pyron for an update. Cliff, do you know what time the accident occurred?
Chris, we still don't know what time the accident occurred. We are here just north of Castle Hayne, off Castle Hayne Road at the Wildlife Boat Ramp, where earlier tonight or earlier this morning, 3 gentlemen came down to the boat ramp. Now, it's unclear whether one of the men fell in or jumped into the water, but New Hanover had to put a search and rescue boat out in the water to go and look for him. But they did not find him, and because of weather conditions, had to pull that boat out of the water. They're waiting for conditions to kind of subside before they put another boat back in, and it just looks like they may be kind of waiting for daylight. But that's really all we know right now. We will bring you more updates within the next half an hour, but that's it right now from Castle Hayne. This is Cliff Pyron, WWAY News Channel 3. Chris?
Cliff, thank you very much. Sunrise coming up this morning at 6:41. That's very close to the high tide period, so that could hamper that as well. We'll stay on that story. More news, more weather coming to you from WWAY News Channel 3.
Now for another look at the storm and what's going on outside, we're going to go to Chief Meteorologist Jerry Jackson.
You know, Marcy, it's funny, even as you throw over here to me, we hear just another sudden gust of wind on the roof outside. So just a sign that the storm is not completely cleared out of our area, although certainly things starting to look much, much better. We've been talking about the most critical part of the forecast all week long, exactly where is the eye going to track, because remember, the weather to the east of the eye is really the worst weather that you will find in the hurricane, and it's pretty obvious now where the eye is headed. It is not headed for southeastern North Carolina. It's actually headed for Morehead City, and that will eventually bring the worst storm conditions very near the Outer Banks, and already those heavy feeder bands beginning to work their way onshore even as we speak. You do see some evidence of drier air wrapping in on the southwestern edge of that storm. That has been eroding some of the rainfall potential, but it's not really eroding the wind field, and indeed sometimes when you have a storm that was originally quite strong like Irene, when it's in the weakening phase, and keep in mind Irene's only a Category 1 storm now, when it's in the weakening phase, sometimes that wind field begins to unravel a little bit, and that can have the effect of throwing even some hurricane force wind gusts a little farther out to the west of the center. So even though we're on technically the safer side of the storm, the weaker side of the storm relatively speaking, we are still seeing some impressive wind gusts even now. Now this is the sustained wind field that you're looking at, and note the wind direction too. Anytime you see your winds out of the north and certainly out of the northwest, that means that the eye has bypassed you to the east. But we still have sustained winds up around 43 to 46 miles an hour across Pender and New Hanover County, and look at the wind gusts. We still have gusts up to about 60 miles an hour. Earlier this morning, we had some reports along the coastal areas of wind gusts up near 70. That's just a few notches below hurricane force, and that's just been over the past couple of hours. So even though the eye has already missed our area, we still have potential for very strong, possibly damaging winds. Anytime you get your wind field over about 40, 45 miles an hour, that is more than strong enough to start knocking out the power, bringing down trees, and even bringing down power lines in a few areas too. Now let's take a most recent look at the level 2 radar data here. And as we zoom in, we'll highlight a couple of areas that are seeing some of the strongest bands of wind right now. And more or less, this is starting to push into Brunswick County. So if we have any viewers over toward Brunswick County, you're seeing some pretty strong wind gusts at the moment. So let's draw that in. So you can see more or less that, let's see, that's Victoria Lane that we're looking at, and there is the community of Northwest. Let's draw in another street up here. I always pick the one that goes right across the name of the town there. Sorry about that. But Sandy Loop Road Northeast, you'll be seeing this most recent little rain band with the more intense wind gust head your way momentarily. So again, there are still some impressive winds out there to be found. We have Asha DeVay on standby. We'll see if we can join her in just a minute. She has been camped out over at Wrightsville Beach. We've had Katie camped out up at Topsail Beach a bit earlier during the course of the evening. So it looks like we are indeed going to be able to go over there now. Marcy, I'm going to let you toss over there and speak with Asha out in the field. Do we have her ready? Okay, so I guess we don't have her ready. That's okay. So we do. We got a thumbs up now. All right. So we've got Asha ready in the field. Marcy, take it away.
All right, Jerry. Thank you. Very long morning for a lot of folks dealing with Irene. Now, yesterday we saw Asha getting battered out there with the wind and rain. She spent the night out at Wrightsville Beach. Asha, are you with us this morning?
I'm here, Marcy. Good morning.
Good morning. So, how was your night out there at Wrightsville Beach? Can you describe for us what it was like with the wind and rain?
Yeah, Marcy, you know, it seemed like the wind and the rain that you all saw last night when we were live here at 5 and 6, that just didn't stop. It actually increased throughout the night. We had a few, you know, spots where it kind of lulled out, but those waves just never stopped. They're extremely impressive, and the wind's very impressive. Just to give you an idea, we're on the 3rd floor of the blockade runner here in Wrightsville Beach, and there is sand covering my balcony, so that's how strong those winds were. We also still are without power, and it appears that up and down Wrightsville Beach, there's still no power here.
So you've been able to look out to see what's going on so far. Have you been able to see, I know it's still dark out there, have you been able to see anything to see if there's any type of damage out there at Wrightsville Beach?
You know, I kind of peeked off my balcony. It looks like there's really no damage right now. I just see a lot of foliage all over the ground. You know, there's some limbs and there's lots of leaves around, but it doesn't appear to be any significant damage.
I know you said the winds have kind of been coming and going, the gust. Right now, have they slowed down a little bit? Can you tell, or is it still just kind of a pattern where it comes and goes?
I would say right now they're still pretty strong. There were a couple times throughout the night where they kind of calmed down, but this morning it's been pretty significantly steady.
All right, and I know we want you to stay safe. In a little bit, you'll be going out kind of surveying that damage, see if anything's going on. One question, though, since you've been at the blockade runner, has it been full? Have people stayed, can you tell, or were people checking out of the hotel to kind of head inland?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Tim Horton, the photographer, and I, and there's actually another news crew from Raleigh, and then there's about 5 to 10 blockade runner employees here, but I'm pretty sure we're the only ones at the hotel this weekend.
Most people went inland. All right, Asha, we'll be checking back with you in a little bit once the sun comes up and we can get an idea and see what's going on out there at Wrightsville Beach. We'll check back in. Thank you very much. And now for another look at the storm, we're going to go back to meteorologist Jerry Jackson.
That's right, Marcy. We've been talking about the wind field and all these numbers, but sometimes when you just see the pictures, it really brings everything into perspective. We have some impressive footage, really, that was shot just over the past couple of hours right outside our own News Channel 3 studios. I don't know exactly who shot. I think this was J.R. Equipment, our director, who actually shot this particular piece here this morning. And you can really see the wind just whipping by there and showing up very nicely against the lights. And again, we've been noticing a few of the lamps had some minor damage, but see that the power is still on in that picture. Not too long after that was taken, we had a power outage occur right after that. And power outages have been fairly common all throughout southeastern North Carolina. People thought they got off the hook with their power last night. Some of them got surprised just the past 2 hours.
Exactly. Unfortunately, some of the people, I mean, just as is the case with these storms, you can't get out there to fix it. So if, you know, you lost the power last night, you're still likely without it this morning. I know at least 15,000 in New Hanover County have probably been the hardest hit with those power outages. And hey there, thanks for joining us for yet another live update. Hurricane Irene is proving to be a tough storm to shake across the area. Right now, looking at the latest satellite and radar pictures, we are still finding heavy driving rains coming across the southeastern corner of the state and right here in most of the Wilmington area. Zooming in just a little bit closer, you can see that pretty much everybody's still in those heavy driving rains, except for those just along the South Carolina border, and anywhere that those rains are falling, we're still finding those extremely high and gusty winds across the area as well. Here, Mike Hughes from Progress Energy. Mike, thanks for joining us this morning.
It's my pleasure.
And Mike, if you could tell us a little bit about the current situation across the area. Is it too windy still for crews to kind of get out and start to make a dent in the power outages that we've seen courtesy of Hurricane Irene?
No, well, in fact, we've had some crews that have been out. Crews worked well into the night until it was just too unsafe to stay out. And then in the southern part of the state, in New Hanover County, Brunswick County, they've been able to get out intermittently as the bands of the highest winds pass by. So, in fact, in the last hour, they've made significant progress in New Hanover County, and we've lowered the outage numbers from about 58,000 an hour or so ago to about 43,000 now. Now, that number is going to continue to fluctuate during the course of the day, but we are able to make some progress.
And Mike, you mentioned New Hanover County now at 43,000. We have a lot of viewers in Brunswick and Pender counties as well. Could you give us the lowdown quickly on where they currently stand?
Sure. Pender County is down slightly over the last hour as well, from about 10,000 an hour or so ago to about 8,800 or so now. Brunswick County still at about 8,300 customers. Again, we're able to get out, but not in force yet. Our crews can't work where there are wind gusts or wind speeds in excess of tropical storm force. So unfortunately, with a storm like this, with a huge wind field that it has, it's still affecting folks even after the eye of the storm is well past.
And that's what's proven to be difficult for us here as well. Those winds just kind of staying stubbornly over the top of the area, and certainly tough for you guys as well. You got to look out for the safety of your crew, like you were saying.
Absolutely. They're chomping at the bit to get out there, but you have to hold them back and make sure that they're going to stay safe, because it's going to be a bit of a marathon, particularly in the hardest hit areas. We expect it to be a multi-day outage. In some areas where the damage is less significant, we would expect to have power restored much sooner, but there are going to be some areas, particularly near the eye of the storm, north of you all, where they've just had the hurricane force winds pounding the area. We're going to have some damage that's going to take several days to restore.
Certainly, being Progress Energy, your main goal is to, provide that energy to the people. But I know the crews must be telling some stories when they're coming back as well about what type of damage they might be seeing. Any stories that you might be able to share about what they're seeing on the ground when they're out trying to fix these repairs?
That given the nature of the storm, we haven't even been able to get out and do a thorough damage assessment yet. But the kinds of damage that they would normally see tend to be trees and tree limbs on lines. And in a storm like this, where you've got the storm surge coinciding with high tide, you're going to get flooding type issues in some areas. We've had some transmission lines that have been put out of service, but we've been able to restore service to some of those. I haven't heard any anecdotes about odd kinds of issues yet. In a storm like this, as we prepare, we look to get tracked vehicles, because we know we're going to have to get to some facilities that are underwater. We have boats that we use for some of our coastal areas, and we use helicopters to fly over our transmission lines to find out where problems are or potential problems are. So we're really going land, sea, and air here to do the restoration effort.
And Mike Hughes joining with us from Progress Energy. Surely it's a busy time for you, and certainly stressful for all the people without power as well. What's the best way for them to kind of get in contact with you while still, not clogging up the phone lines with you as well?
Sure. If a customer is without power and has not yet reported the outage, we'd ask them to do so by calling our 800 number. It's 1-800-419-6356. And we have operators there. They can also report through our automated system, which is actually faster than talking to an operator, and can handle up to 120,000 calls an hour. So I have, in fact, had to call in an outage myself this morning. My wife called and said our power was out, and it took about 3 minutes. So we encourage customers to do that. The main thing that we want them to do in the meantime is continue to be patient, and we will get to them just as quickly as we can. But even more important than that, be very safe, particularly around down power lines. If you see them, please report them to us. Always assume that they're energized and don't go near them.
Sure, and the bottom line is we just need to get those winds down before we can take care of the situation out there. Again, thank you to Mike Hughes for joining us from Progress Energy. And really, like we were saying, we need to pin down when those winds are going to stop. And right now, it's just not too easy to do that. Storm kind of stalling out across the area. And we're going to get back to those forecast graphics for you. You can see the current gusts right now still in Wilmington at 53 miles per hour, 45 miles per hour on the gusts in Southport. So still well within that tropical storm force range. But it does look like the winds are coming out of a due westerly direction right now. Sometimes that can indicate that we're starting to get really to the bottom edge of that storm. If that trend were to continue, that would give us more confidence that it is lifting out of the area, but we're not just seeing that totally yet. Another thing that might help this storm to finally kick out of our region is that trough of low pressure we've been telling you all week that's going to kick it off to the east and into the big cities of the northeast. That should at least help to scoot it out of the southeast as well eventually this afternoon, but the trough is actually quite weak at this time, so that's coming into question as well. Some of our forecast models have been kind of reluctant to push the moisture out as well, and the latest model that we're choosing on Tropical Futurecast is pushing the storm pretty much north of the area, and by late afternoon clearing out the rain and hopefully the wind along for the ride. But right now it's pretty much just a watch and see moment, waiting on those winds to die down across the area. And of course we have those warnings still in effect.